for joining us tonight. We are very privileged to have John Lindquist from JetBrains, who's going to show us some amazing features in WebStorm in conjunction with developing AngularJS. If you don't know, John is the author of the egghead.io site, where there are many, many fantastic videos on using AngularJS. He's been a friend of our project for a long time. We're very excited to have him tonight. Let's have some applause for John. Thanks.
Thanks, Brad. So how many people here actually use WebStorm? PHP Storm? All right, it's about half. All right, cool. So what is WebStorm? A lot of people really don't know the answer to this. They don't realize that WebStorm is actually built on top of a product called IntelliJ, where the community edition is open source. So the platform of WebStorm itself is an open source, available on GitHub. You can check it out. And we'll talk about building plugins for it closer to the end. But so WebStorm is built on top of this IntelliJ platform, and it adds all these features for JavaScript and HTML and CSS and Node, and we'll get into those as well. So what am I going to cover here? I'm going to cover 10 things. So code analysis, keyboard shortcuts, actions, templates, refactoring, navigation, local history, and version control, external tools, file watchers, and plugins. So I am not one to waste time. If you've seen any of my videos, I just dive right in. So let's dive right in. So I have WebStorm open here. This is what it looks like. And I'm going to show you how to be the ultimate troll to the AngularJS project. So what we'll do here is we'll go into the inspect code. We're just going to inspect. You can inspect the directory, or I just do a custom scope. I define one that inspects the directory, but without the locale stuff. I don't want to check the locale for spelling mistakes. So it's going to run through and see how many issues, or not issues, but warnings or errors that you may find inside of the directory you inspect. So AngularJS is absolutely perfect. It's just that there happens to be 2,087 items, which may require consideration. So if you really want to troll AngularJS or any other project, you come to this one called unterminated statement. Now, if you know what an unterminated statement is, so there might be something missing at the end there. According to some people who really like semicolons, it's going to show each and every line that's missing a semicolon. So see no semicolon there. So I would simply just come in here, select all of them, say, you know what, apply this fix. And now I just added semicolons to every place that should have had a semicolon inside of AngularJS. You commit this, submit a pull request, and they'll accept it, right? I'm not one way or the other on that issue. I just don't care. So other more important, or I mean, you may find semicolons to be a very important issue, but other more important issues or warnings you can see in here, like. This isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's just saying that, you know what, this if statement here is redundant. It could be simplified. So Alt-Enter is the, if you see an inspection that it gives you something called an intention when you hit Alt-Enter. And so I'm just going to say, OK, simplify. And so now it's just going to return what could have on that last line instead of the before and after. And so you can kind of go through here. You can see all the different things. So an unnecessary continue statement. You can see in here that we have a loop, and inside of here it says if, and the first thing inside it says continue. Now it's not necessarily a bad thing. Again, it's only a warning level thing. It's not necessarily a bad thing that's there. It's just saying, you know what, that's unnecessary. Because if you get to that if, it's just going to continue anyway. There's nothing going on. So if you want to do any sort of code review, or you're looking through the project with your team, you can see it'll find things like CSS issues, selectors that aren't used inside of CSS, data flow issues, JavaScript validity, JS test driver, probable bugs. So probable bugs, this isn't a bad one. It's just that it thinks that because jQuery Lite has class is uppercase, it assumes that it's constructor. and it's returning something. So it's saying that's a probable bug, but it's not. So again, these are warnings. They're not necessarily bad things. AngularJS is fully tested and works great, and it's awesome and perfect. It's just that using WebStorm as a tool, as a code review for something you and your team, something you and your team can go through, use a static code analysis, and have fun just seeing what's going on. And one of the fun things to do is just go through here, find all of the spelling mistakes. Let's see, where's a fun one? See, WebStorm doesn't think that transclude is a word either, so it is though. It really is. And Voita's obviously misspelled. Let's see, formatted. So that should be spelled, should be 2 T's and formatted. So you could go in there, fix the spelling mistake. So you can see I can do Alt-Enter, typo, rename to, and it's going to say, well, forayed, forested, formatted, formulated. So any questions on that? You can feel free to ask questions anytime. Mike, or I can repeat it. We had a question here, so Mike or...
Hi, my name is Jose.
Yeah.
So I just started using Testacular,
Okay.
and I like the watch where whenever I change a file and it runs my test. In this workflow here that you just demoed, when you take the suggestion and it just automatically does a global refactor, does it integrate with Testacular and it just runs your test, or is that kind of like it doesn't know about each other?
So once it does all those changes, it'll save the files, and then Testacular should pick up on the karma. Should pick up on the changes.
Okay.
So there's no integration. It's just that Karma should be smart enough to know that those files.
Okay, so it does save it. Okay.
Yeah. So there is to his point, there is a virtual file system on top of the actual file system. So you'll never have to save a file. What that means is that you'll never see that a file is unsaved or unchanged. You'll never be hitting Command S or Control S. It simply will keep it saved and up to date all the time. If you want to go back to, if you want to go back and see what's going on, you can just go into your local history, say show history. So say you made a change that you didn't want to. You can go back and it'll do a diff between what it was and what it is now. A lot of people who use PHP Storm, they want to just edit one file and they test something and they realize that, oh, I didn't want to make that change, and they want to go back and they don't. They didn't want to save, so I end up showing that trick quite often. All right. Question?
This is sort of a question, I guess. I wouldn't go and modify the source code of Angular, but I most likely in my project I just point to the CDN. And does it smart enough to actually go and like pull the CDN and use it locally to check that it's a problems?
Hello? Hello? Okay. Yes? Yes? I think I'm good here. Okay. You have a...
Turn up your mic.
All right. Good? Okay. So if you have a link in a script tag pointed to a CDN such as... let's see, I already have it installed here, but if I do... assume I have an index file here. Templates. So we'll find script. And we'll just do a... If you don't know Emmet or Zen coding, I highly recommend you pick it up, because you can just type things like this, script, :source, hit tab, and it'll expand it all out. So check out emmet.io. This is available in WebStorm, but it's also available in many other editors. So if I do something like grab AngularJS.org, download, copy that, and paste it in there, it'll show a warning. Again, if it's highlighted like that, just hit Alt-Enter, and it'll say download library. And then once it downloads that library, it'll be ready to do things like autocomplete off of that library. So just watch for these little, watch for those little highlights to show that things are warnings or things that can be inspected and changed. Now, what a lot of people ask is, there's a lot of warnings, there's a lot of things going on in my code. I don't want them to show up. It's actually pretty easy to turn off. You just come to this little guy down here. If you can see the icon. His name is Hector. He's an inspector, so he's Hector the inspector. Click on him. You can just crank it down, say turn the inspections off, just show me syntax errors, or I don't even want to see syntax errors, show me nothing. Or if you want to have fine-tuned control over the inspections, you can just hit configure. You can change any inspections that are included, like CSS. If you want to inspect the hex color representation instead of RGB color function, then you can. It's disabled here. So if you want to turn it off, go ahead and turn it off. All right, powering forward. So keyboard shortcuts. I was actually working with a guy named Watson on a site called Shortcut Foo. If you've ever been there, it's a way to learn keyboard shortcuts. It takes you through these drills. And he wanted basically a list of all the keyboard shortcuts that are available in WebStorm. So what I did, I went through the code base and generated a list of all the keyboard shortcuts based on IntelliJ Community and WebStorm. What it turned out is that WebStorm has 402 keyboard shortcuts. So let's go through each one individually, one by one right now. Number one, no. So the best way to jump into the keyboard shortcuts is just come into this help section here. You go to your default key map reference, and this will just open a PDF based on whatever platform you're on. So I'm on Mac here. And you can just either print this off or just keep on referring back to it. These are the main ones that you'll want to use. It'll list off the refactorings, debuggings, navigation, code editing, things like that. If you don't know how to evaluate an expression during a debug session, if you don't know that that's Alt F8, it's not the end of the world. There is a button for that. So, also, if you just want to dive into keyboard shortcuts, you can change your key map to be something like Eclipse or Visual Studio if you want to, or just use this little guide to see what the keystrokes are. So obviously, Command V is paste, or Command Alt V is going to be extract variable, Command Alt M. So you just kind of jump around in there, or even just search for the things you're trying to find, and it'll show what the keyboard shortcuts are. So actions is the next thing on the list after keyboard shortcuts. Actions also allow you to, let me jump over to my other project here. Actions also allow you to see what the keyboard shortcuts are, or even find things that don't have keyboard shortcuts bound to them. So if you were to type in something like variable for extract variable, you forgot it was, and it's also listed, it's highlighted here. For Command-Shift-A, it'll show you every single action that's available in WebStorm. So Command-Shift-A will bring up this list. If you forgot what the keyboard shortcut for variable was, you can just type var. The one I'm going to show here is, let's see. So if something you probably do a lot is like create a controller, and we'll just call it the Flash controller, and then you type out function, and then you close it off, and that ends up being a lot of keystrokes. So something you can do here. Oh, look, it's telling me I should put a semicolon there. One thing you should do here is just say, I use Command-Shift-A for save as live template. You can also just pull that down from here, but nobody wants to actually touch the mouse, do they? So Command-Shift-A, save as live template. And then you can save this as a live template you can use over and over again. So I'm just going to say whenever I type CTRL and then hit, it looks like I defined it earlier. Let's see. So whenever I hit CTRL and then I hit tab, and I define that properly because it warned me of the, it warned me but I didn't change it. Drag. Okay, let me do that one more time. Apologies there. All right. So save as live template, and then control. Now this time it wasn't duplicated, so it didn't save it last time. And then we'll hit OK. Now anytime I hit CTRL and hit tab, it'll automatically generate that as a live template. Now you can see some things you probably want to include in here. You see the cursor ended here, and you probably want to change the name. You don't want it to always be flash control. So you could actually go into your live template and say, I want this to be a variable of name, and I want this to be the place where the cursor ends when I'm done. So when I click apply, now I can say CTRL, hit tab, call this Superman or something. When I hit enter, it'll end there. So you can create these live templates for usability. It's especially important in things like frameworks where you're going to start leveraging framework APIs like using controllers, using services, or any of the providers, where instead of typing the method or the function name, the string, and then the callback there, you can just automatically generate them for you. Any questions so far? Okay, so the question is how to share it, so you can use it across projects, across teams. The answer is there's no way to do it inside of just a single project, but if you export your settings, you can share anything you want with your team as far as your code style settings, your file templates, and then your live templates as well, key maps, macros, quick lists, all that sort of stuff. Just come up here, export your settings, and then anyone else on your team can import them. Any other questions? All right. All right, forging ahead. So also similarly, if I want to reuse this sort of thing as a file template, so if I have this controllers template I'm going to use a lot, I can just come in here and say tools, say file as template, and I'll just call this my controllers template. Then when I go new file, I can say controllers, type in whatever, and then it'll just add this file that was exactly the same as my previous file, now just named whatever. And if anyone's familiar with Velocity, it uses the Velocity template language, so it can prompt you for additional variables or anything you want to throw in there. You can even loop through, if you want to put in a comma-separated list or something, loop through all of them and generate a whole bunch of controller names for you if you want. All right. So refactoring. So let's jump over to the empty project here. So there's different ideas of what refactoring is. So we can write a method here, or we'll just say do something, and then hello 10, and then an object with, let's say, person, we'll say Batman. And this will say, well, I don't see do something anywhere in the project. So if you hit Alt-Enter, Alt-Enter is one of those keyboard shortcuts you just have to commit to memory, because anytime you see a little squiggly or highlight, it usually means you can do something. So we just create that function, and we can say message amount, and then hero. So that's not necessarily refactoring, that's more like generating. But if you want to rename something, for example, all the refactoring things are underneath this refactor menu. I recommend learning this refactor, this keyboard shortcut, or actually changing it to something else. It's one of those that got added in after all these other ones. So it's, let's see, Command-Shift-Alt-T. You can easily go into the key map and change that to Command-T. It's just that Command-T is bound to update project right now, which it has been for like 12 years. So you can change that if you want. But I'm just going to hit Command-T, or yeah, my Command-T, rename, and I can say rename this to something else. But also, if you have a HTML file or any other file that be referencing this, and you come down and you create a script, we'll say script, and then I reference this something else function, you can see that if I rename it from here, I can rename it to, let's say, third thing. So you can see that it renamed not only in the file that referenced it, but also the actual instances of where it's created. Now, the cool thing here is that if you document this, and that'll automatically generate the documents if you just put in the slash and then the double asterisks. If you document this and you give these some types, so if the message is string and the amount is a number, oops, and then the third guy is just an object, you can actually get warnings if you type in here. It'll first say there's an invalid number of parameters. It's expecting 3. So and that if you type in 10 here, it's going to say, we'll say 10 foo object. Argument type is number. It's not assignable type string. So if you document your JavaScript code well, you can kind of get this false or kind of compile time or coding time type checking, which can be very handy when you're working with quite a few functions. So I can... any questions so far? Anything else? All right. And then also you can do things like extracting variables is as simple as if you type something like hello world, and then Command-Alt-V is just extract variable. Or if you want to change this, so I'm going to hit Command-W, which does expands the selection, and hit Command-Alt-M. I can type in a message name or a function name, and then it can, wrap that as an extracted function. So there's so refactoring your code when you're changing your code, you can do it by either just typing it out and then letting letting WebStorm generate it for you, or by refactoring it as you go along. Since I know everyone would love to spend all their time writing new projects, but honestly, you spend 95% of your time modifying existing projects. Yeah. Microphone, or should I just repeat it? Here.
So in Angular, you have a lot of services, and you are going to use that to injecting into your controllers, right? So it's WebStorm having a feature for you to kind of refactor the service name, and it's going to rename all the service name in those controller?
Not currently. That's something I'm considering for the plugin. I'll show it as I get closer to the end here. But that's a cool feature request for the plugin.
Okay,
I think that's definitely doable. Anything else? All right. So code navigation. So if I jump over to the seed project here, let's jump into, let's say, well, let's look at, I think a good one is build. Oh. I wish they would keep those in order when you do this. They're always jumping around, so I want Angular. There it is. All right. Okay, so if you want to see the structure of any of your files, you can open up something called the file structure, and it'll show you all the methods that are available, or any of the variables or anything that's available inside of that file. And you can also invoke it by just Command F12 is the file structure pop-up. And the cool thing about this is you can just hit Command F12 and then start typing and filter down the methods that you want to go to. So if I wanted to get the date filter, I just type date filter, type date, and it'll jump straight to that. If I wanted to jump down to the time zone getter, it jumps straight to the time zone getter. So instead of just searching your file, this is actually searching the things that are exposed inside of your file. If you want to navigate your project and not just the file, Command-Shift-N allows you to, it allows you to just search for any of the files in the project. So if you put star there, it'll just find every single file. If you put star.js, it'll find all of the JavaScript files. If you put kind of a folder structure, so let's say source auto, so we can do source auto and then all the JavaScript files in there. Or source, let's do ng, and it'll show all the JavaScript files in there. So that'll allow you to navigate through files themselves. An even cooler thing is if you can't remember where you define something inside of a file, if you do Command-Alt-Shift, you can actually type a symbol name. So if I want to go back to that, I think it was called time zone getter, I can do that from a global level. I can just find, think of what the name of it was, hit enter, and then jump straight to it. What a lot of people don't realize is if you, as you're navigating through this list, you can also hit, I'm not sure if there's enough screen real estate to show this. If you hit Command-Shift-I while you're doing this, you can preview what that function exactly is as you're navigating to it. And if there are docs to it, if you hit Control-J, you can actually, let's see if I can find one. So timestamp, create a timestamp. It's pretty small, but create a timestamp if incoming event doesn't have one. And then looks like none of the others have docs. And then just hit enter to jump to the thing that it found. Any questions there? No? Okay. All right. So version control. So let's see who's done the most work on Angular. Let's see. So if I go to the changes, look at the log, let's see. So it looks like Igor does all the work. Misko kind of sits there and fixes some comments, and then Vojta doesn't do anything. So maybe someone, Brad, you should get on them about that. Anyway, so the log here can show all the commits that have happened in the project. It shows that how active the 1.0 is versus 1.1. And as you select the commit, you can see, you can look through who the committer was, what the description is of the commit comment or the commit message. And then you can, from here, look at the files that were changed. And you can diff between there. Let me find a better example. You can diff between there of what the changes were, and it'll highlight the changes between what they were and what they are now. So you can also just simply search in here, search through all the comments. So if I want to search for anything that had to do with the docs, I can look at Matthew McComb's change. Shout out to Matthew if you're watching. Double click on that and then pop open the diff to see what he changed. So, what's that? It's a great recruiting tool. A great recruiting tool? Oh, okay. Yeah. So, if anyone's hiring, you should hire Matthew, James, and Zero. And Philippe's pretty good too. All right. So, yeah, from there, there's many other options as far as comparing with the local file or selecting from the file, and you can compare with other branches, compare with other things that are out there in the repo, and of course we have the standard things for simply if I make a change here, break, and I want to just commit something, I can just come into Git. And I can just commit the file. Or the thing that I use all the time is the VCS operations pop-up. So this is just Control-V. It'll pop up a list of whatever version control system you're using, whether it's Subversion or Git or whatever. Just hit Control-V and it'll show you the list of actions that you can do. So I can hit Control-V, hit type 1, and it'll pop up the things that I committed. Obviously this has all the semicolon stuff added as well. So I can say added semicolons, or being a troll. Then you can reformat the code, optimize your imports if you're using TypeScript or something, run a tool or upload the files, things like that when you commit. It's also integrated with GitHub. So if you're if you have a GitHub account, it can list all of your projects. It can list all the projects. Like these are all the ones that I have up on Git. So I could just select one of them, hit OK, and it would bring the project into as a new WebStorm project. All right. So external tools. So a question I get a lot actually is, how do I work with some other tool on my system that's not defined? And a lot of people assume that you kind of come up here. Let me show the toolbar. You come up here, you'd set up a run configuration or something, and they don't know where to set up those external tools. The way we have it set up now, and maybe we'll change this in the future, but the way we have it set up now is if, so say for example, I'll create a new project, we'll just call it live Yeoman, and we'll say new window. So there's nothing in here, but if I go to one of the tools I set up and I say tools, Yeoman, Yo Angular, it'll pop open the dialog. I can just hit enter to say yes to everything. I always say yes to dialogues. And then once it's done downloading, you can see that I automatically have a new Yeoman AngularJS project set up simply from just clicking one button. Similarly, if I come in here and say tools, Yeoman, controller. If you're not familiar with Yeoman, just go to yeoman.io. It's a project that helps you to generate code, and it's especially helpful for Angular if you want to just generate controllers, generate services, things like that. So if I want to create a new, we'll just call it Superman controller, why not? Hit OK. You can see it's integrated with that external tool. I'll just call it. And then I can open the Superman controller or the Superman test that it generated. And you can also see that Yeoman loaded the, let's see, let's go to this one. That Yeoman loaded the Superman into our main file. So Yeoman, very cool project. Check for things like generating, so check it out. But what you do to set up Yeoman as an external tool is just go into your preferences, look for the external tools setting here, and you can just set up, what you want to call it, the program you want to execute, the parameters you want to pass in, the working directory, and for something like the controller, we have things for macros, like this will prompt you for some input, or you can insert other macros like the file extension or the relative file path, the file name, things of that nature. All right. Any questions? No? Definitely check out Yeoman. Yes?
So you guys are the makers of Team City CI Server 2.
Yes.
Is that correct? Do you guys have a, in our shop, we have full stack development, but we use Visual Studio for the backend, the C#, those kind of projects. Do you guys have like a pre-tested commit option where I could like submit my tests that I'm doing for Angular straight from the IDE and see if they pass?
I'm sure we do.
Oh.
I haven't, that sounds like a standard thing we'd include.
Okay.
I don't do that much with
For
Team City.
WebStorm, it's usually something that's included as part of the IDE. And
and as an IDE option?
You would launch it from WebStorm, and it would tell you whether your tests pass on the CI server or not.
Honestly, not sure. I'll have to check with you after. Any other questions? All right. So that's external tools. Again, that works with, it's not just a Yeoman thing, it works with any sort of external tool. If you want to use some weird code formatter, some sort of code formatting that we don't support, or any other tool you just want to invoke from a keyboard shortcut, because you can map keyboard shortcuts to it, definitely check those out. All right. So file watchers are a relatively new thing to WebStorm and WebStorm 6. So I'm going to create a CoffeeScript file here. So if you do a lot of CoffeeScript in Angular, we'll just call it live. And when you create a CoffeeScript file, it's going to say, do you want to add a watcher to this? I'll say, yes, I want to add a watcher. Basically, what that means is that it's going to start watching for any changes in these type of files and then run a tool when something changes. So if I create some sort of like list of foods, we'll say foods. Foods is apple, orange, banana. You can actually see that as I'm typing. This is actually pretty fun to watch live with something like CoffeeScript. You can see that as I'm typing, you can say for food in foods and do something like have eat be a function that takes a food. Say eat food for food and foods. You can see that stuff generate automatically. So if I were to delete that, you could see it updates on the other side. Or if I type console log food. So for any of the tools, like we include templates for CoffeeScript, for let's see, under file watchers, we include templates for CoffeeScript, for TypeScript, for Less and Sass, and a lot of for Dart. It's basically a template saying that when you encounter a change in a CoffeeScript file within your project scope or any scope you define, invoke this tool with these arguments in this working directory. So basically, it's not like we're bundling the CoffeeScript compiler or bundling TypeScript compiler. We're executing an external tool whenever that file changes using those parameters. So if you want to do if you want to like set up Karma and just do like a Karma run on a file change, you could do that as well, or any other tools involved with your workflow. Any questions? All right. So when you get really passionate about WebStorm, like I am, I actually just joined JetBrains a few months ago. I loved IntelliJ, I love WebStorm, so I kind of finagled my way into the company. And for some reason they hired me, I don't know why. You can start writing plugins for any of the projects that you work with. So the Angular plugin, which has started pretty humbly at simply, once you type something like div, you can actually type ng and it'll show you a list of attributes that Angular includes. So these wouldn't normally be included in autocomplete. It's just that I wrote a plugin, actually a pretty simple plugin that just includes this list and allows you to autocomplete on the attributes. And that actually, just to show you how simple that plugin looks. And if you like, the Java naming system, this is the AngularJS custom attribute descriptions provider, which implements the XML attribute descriptions provider. So it's basically just a list saying, provide these in an HTML file when you're auto-completing an attribute. Now, there's actually a ton of downloads for this. So I decided to start tackling a couple other things. The first one I did was, so if you do something like ng class, why not? And you start typing, you do 2 curly braces, it'll auto-complete the other 2. So if you're ever doing something in your workflow and you're just typing something, you're like, I know that could be faster. Basically, I'm the sort of guy I try to be so productive that I'm unproductive. I'll spend all day trying to type one less character. So I get a lot done in like the first 1 second of the day, and then I just come to a complete halt whenever Anyway, so yeah, this will save you like 1 keystroke, but it's totally worth it. And the other thing I really want to get this to work. Right now, I'm not removing duplicates, but these are things that are actually on scope variables. So I'd love to get autocomplete to work inside of bindings. I'm not sure if I'll ever get it perfect, just because of the magic that goes on inside of Angular to inject the scope, add things to the scope, and then expose them. But you know, you don't want to show $on or $parent if those are being referenced. Anyway, the other cool feature that that's just recently implemented is this list here. It's basically showing everything that's going on inside of this project that's related to Angular. This is Wojt's text drive project if you want to see how he built this out. But basically it's showing all the controllers, all the directives, all the factories, all the services and values and whatnot. And all you have to do is just either click on one, or you can search for, say, edit session, so ES, hit enter, and it'll jump straight to the line where the edit session is. Whoops, double click that. Or you can search for filter folding, hit enter, and it'll jump straight to your filter folding. Your filter folding factory is fun, for sure. So once you really get into this and you start building plugins, you can really super accelerate your workflow. And that's one of my goals as far as what my job is to get people more interested in evaluating the workflow, seeing how it can be sped up. Because once you get into things like creating plugins like that, it's simply just an action. We talked about actions at the beginning where you search for the action, see what it does. You bind a keyboard shortcut to it, and once it's performed, this code might not be readable right now, but you just realize, well, you have a project, you have a context, and I'm just using the find manager to do a regex check for anything in here. And once I have that list of results, I just populate this go-to model, and then I find where it is, put them together in a model, provide it to the list, and then you just hit enter and it jumps straight to it. It's conceptually very simple. You just have to get used to the API of how to build that. So anything I've shown tonight, say for example, if you want to build Angular inspections, all you have to do is extend something like an HTML inspection or a JS inspection. And these are just, if you're familiar with something called the visitor pattern, you can just say check attribute. It's going to look through all the attributes. And you can evaluate that attribute based on the what's called a PSI. You can check what it's named, check the elements around it. And then if you find something like that, you can highlight it. You can provide your own quick fix, which would be either code generation or renaming or things of that nature. And really build these super powerful things. So if you're interested in this sort of stuff, please come talk to me after. I would love to show you. Anyway, any questions?
All right. So I was going to start playing around with a literate CoffeeScript. How do I add that additional extension and get it to work cleanly with the in place for CoffeeScript? I was able to figure out how to do something with like file templates, so it watches for .lit coffee.
Okay.
But I haven't been able to integrate it fully in with the CoffeeScript watcher and getting all of that working.
Okay. You'd set up a custom scope for that. I will come over and show you. I'll come and show you after all the other questions are complete. So, and I'm done presenting, so questions now or forever hold your peace.
Yeah, I use RubyMine, and I was wondering if all the features that you show are available, if I can enable somehow, or is out of the box everything will work.
Yeah, so WebStorm is included in RubyMine, in PyCharm, and PHPStorm, and IntelliJ Ultimate, and it's actually included. All the features are included in all of our other products. So.
Hi, I wondered if you could talk a little bit about the integration that's been done with the Chrome plugin to do the live update of HTML, and just like what the transport layer for that looks like, or anything that you know about it.
What's the transport layer look like?
Yeah.
Like how it hooks into the debugger and things
Yeah,
like that?
and just like whether or not once it gets to the browser, is it talking to a standard DevTools API, or are you just like evaluating JavaScript in the window, or?
It's talking to the DevTools API.
Okay, so all the standard APIs like set resource, content, and all that stuff.
Yeah, as far as I know, I didn't write it, but yeah, it's updating. It's the exact. If you're going to go into the DevTools and make a change, we update it the same way that the dev tools do. So, yeah, and what he's referring to is if you're typing inside of WebStorm, you can live update the changes inside of Chrome because there's full integration there.
Besides JavaScript development, I also tend to do some Java development in the same project. Is it possible to set up WebStorm so that I can have my project compiled and running, my Java project compiled and running in there at the same time as all the JavaScript stuff, or do I need to run IntelliJ for that?
IntelliJ Ultimate is what would allow you to do the Java stuff and the WebStorm stuff. So.
Couple quick questions. Can I use the Git or SVN integration to manage my dependent libraries? So like you showed the AngularJS repository on Git. Could I use that to maybe pull in a pull request from someone that I wanted to use in my application and have it update my local version of the library? Is that at all possible?
You mean if someone made a change to the, like a version that's linked to a CDN or something?
Someone submitted a pull request that I wanted to try out in my current application. Could I use WebStorm to sort of manage that?
You can't manage pull requests through WebStorm if that's, or yet at least,
okay,
if that's what you're asking. But if you just merge in the pull request and pull it down yourself, then you can check it out that way.
Okay. And so a lot of the things that you showed were kind of vanilla JavaScript. I was kind of interested to see what you might be able to show with injected IntelliSense, because if you're injecting something like the HTTP service, something that's fairly basic, it would be nice to see what the IntelliSense coming out of that might be, or custom things that you inject in.
Yeah. So if you look at, let's see, where's my, this project should have enough. So controller. So if I inject HTTP, let's see what sort of results we get here. So I think it'll try and find what's available based on other things that are in the project, but because it's injected and there's magic going on there as far as the way Angular does it by matching strings and whatnot.
Yeah.
There's as far as right now, there's very little we can do for IntelliSense. It is possible to do certain. If I make assumptions about the way you're writing your code, then I could help you. Then I could provide IntelliSense to it. But if you're just going to, order the parameters however you want or rename them or things like that, then it's hard to make it super smart without some sort of reference.
This is Igor. I just wanted to say that we're adding closure annotations to AngularJS, and if you annotate the code, your code, with closure annotations, and you say that what is being injected is HTTP service, then WebStorm will be able to autocomplete and do clever stuff.
It should. Let's see.
So we don't have the annotations there yet.
Yeah.
But once you have the code annotated, then WebStorm can use the annotations to tell you. Show you the documentation in line and all that stuff.
Yeah. So yeah, if you annotate your code, document your code, that gives us at least something to look at, to infer what the type is, versus the magic string matching. So.
Do we have any other questions?
I'll be around after if you have questions you want to ask.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks, John, for coming and visiting us.
For having me.
We'll be around for some time, and I hope to see you in San Francisco next month. Thank you.